Hey guys, this is Chaos with Tape, and today you join me for episode 5 of Kerbal Wars, and we're starting with the carrier, which still needs to put itself into a proper orbit, because I left it kind of in a skew-F orbit because it was taking so long, and I'd been doing a lot of maneuvers that episode, so I got a little bored. But it is running pretty low on fuel, so I'll probably have to resupply it this episode, which should be fun, bringing a resupply ship into the midst of something so large. I didn't realize actually in the battle for Hermes Station that this actually well, I did realize during the battle, but I didn't mention that this actually drifted into the battlefield, which I was trying to keep it out of. So there were 2 carriers in that battlefield, so the lag was pretty bad. Although actually not as bad as I thought it would be with 2 carriers and everything else. But anyway, skipping ahead, because this burn does take a while, because well, these are actually pretty hefty burns, and it's not exactly a fast ship. But yeah, we're in a pretty nice orbit now. Near enough. It doesn't have to be perfect because, well, it's Kerbal space program and it's pretty easy to hit an orbit. If you know what you're doing, of course. But anyway, I will need to be resupplying this, and the first thing it needs is fighters. So that's what is in this fairing. Basically, if you don't know, those old fighters don't work because in 1.0 the solar panels I was using, they can't be retracted anymore, they can only be extended, so I have to use a slightly heavier one. So I've designed some very slightly new fighters. These are Scorpion Mark IIs in a beautiful fairing. I've been practicing shaping fairings properly, because if you just do like one curve out, then up, then one curve in, it looks kind of just bleak. But this is, I've gradually curved it in so it looks more like a fairing, although it is still a bit square. But anyway, this is also controlled from the probe at the top of the vehicle because it would wobble around way too much. And that's actually a very good way of doing this, is rather than having basically a dead rocket behind your payload, it's often good to have like an active rocket which has its own control scheme and everything else, because it's going to be far more stable. But anyway, ditching those fairings as they shatter away is very unelegantly. We need to get up to altitude with this, which is just a matter of burning laterally until I'm going fast enough. And then I think I'll probably I'm going to come in behind the carrier, so then it's just a matter of putting myself in a slightly, well, not lower orbit, but dropping my periaps down to below the periaps of the Odin carrier so that my orbital period is lower, so that I will catch up with it overall. Jeez. But yeah, as you can see here, as I've warped it to my apoaps, you just burn prograde and put your intersect closer together because your orbital period will be less than your target, and yeah, so I'm going to catch up with it pretty soon. That's 50 kilometers, 40, and I'm going to bring it down as much as possible, just burning prograde, and I'll do lots of fine maneuvers later. But yeah, that looks pretty good. Anyway, I think I'll just skip through all this because the orbital maneuvers took a while, and there's a lot to get in this episode. So yeah, we're at Odin now, and it's just a matter of slowing down with our stage, although our stage actually doesn't have enough fuel to slow down all the way, I don't think. Although, actually, I think it might just about. I think at this point I may have put some of the fuel from one of my missiles in there. The missiles actually carry a surprising amount of fuel now, because the update put more fuel in those tanks, which is a little weird actually. It's I don't know why they did that, but they did, and that's probably good. It gives me a longer range missile. But anyway, now it's just a matter of parking these Scorpions outside the Odin carrier. And the lag was pretty bad right now, because when you've got 6 fighters, a transfer stage, and a massive carrier, all in the same space, it's pretty bad. That's why I like to try and keep carriers apart in fights, because it gets a little tedious to try and turn at like 10 frames a second, and 10's like a really good day, usually more like 5. But yeah, this wasn't too unbearable. A little later it does get a little worse, but I just cut through all that because there's no point watching it. But that's actually like a completely different mission. Anyway, now I need to get the old fighters out, and I'm going to try and once and for all take off this solar panel from this Scorpion, but it is having none of it. If you've looked closely, you may have noticed that the transfer stage I used was actually rather weird looking, and has some extremities. That's so I can attach these fighters to it and send them back to Kerbin in a ball of fire. So yeah, I'm just going to go and fly all of these over and attach them to to the fighters, and then bring the not to the fighter to the transfer stage, and then bring the Kerbals back. Probably bring them back to the other fighters because there's only actually one pilot in the Scorpions, and there's 3 Scorpions. So yeah, I only brought up one new pilot because, well, although I'm thinking I need to give my my current pilot some shore leave pretty soon because they had a pretty rigorous battle. I mean, one of them was actually had his capsule shot by a rather large missile. But anyway, that is the first one on. And now it's just a matter of getting Charlie out. Oh no, the hatch is obstructed. So a little bit of tomfoolery later. I just get him right out because, well, because I needed to get him out because I don't want him dying in the fire. That's for the fighters. But anyway, let's fly across the void all the way to. Well, right now I'm pointed at Odin, but I think I'm actually going to stop him off at the Scorpions so that he can fly one of them in at a later date. Well, not a later date, in a few hours probably, because these maneuvers do take a while. Although it wasn't an hour, but you know. Where do I decide to turn around? Probably around here, I'd say. Oh no, I flew right past the Scorpions. That was foolish of me. But yeah, I have some very cool things planned for this episode. Mainly making my carrier not the main element of my fleet for battling, because it's not really made for battling, and light fighters are a bit, well, they're a bit light, and they, although I have to say I was very impressed as how these Scorpions, well, not these Scorpions, but the Scorpions I'm about to destroy, how those missiles did against that carrier in the last episode where I just tore it apart. Because, well, I just hit it in the right spot, and if they're light, you can like move around quite well and get into places to shoot quite accurately at various bits. So that's all rather good. But I would like a proper battle fleet because it's been made clear to me that someone wants a fight, and they're gonna get it. But anyway, let's put this guy in his little fighter. And then just do the same with the rest of the fighters, just move them across to, well, what's now called Scorpion, weirdly enough, but that's actually the transfer stage. So, yes, let's grab our fighter and just move it across, skipping through all the maneuvers, of course, and then we'll deal with that in a little bit. And now, just getting that Kerbal into his fighter, and then, actually, with the next fighter, the transfer stage has drifted so far that I decided just to basically point at retrograde, and let it die. As you can see here, just using all the RCS to put it into the atmosphere, well, to deal with it as much as possible, although it was very ineffective for some reason. And then just ignite the ion engine and bail, basically. Just bail on him and then run away. I thought that would be a great end for a fighter that was very useful to us. Fiery death. But, well, they're broken and it's fine, because we still have the epic fighter pilots. But anyway, let's put our Kerbal back in the carrier, and then move our fighters across. Yeah, there's quite a lot of space. I could fit 12 Kerbals in here. I think I only have 4 now. Oh no, there's 2 in the bridge as well, so I think 6, including the ones in the fighters, which we need to pull across right now, as we can see here, just moving in. I do like these fighters in this hangar, actually, because it is just such a big hangar. It's so nice to move around, much bigger than any of the other hangars I've ever built before. But yeah, you can see I've modified these. Actually, if you really paid attention, I've modified them quite a bit. I've moved the like RCS tanks around, and I've added some some wideness to the fighters because because I had to accommodate those new solar panels, and I added a few more thrusters, and they're just more effective fighters now, actually, which is good. And I imagine those solar panels will be much more hardy than the other ones, given that they're shielded. So these are actually much better as fighters. And then anyway, let's get this Kerbal across. I believe this is actually Jebediah Kerbin. So let's throw him into one of these containers, and then bring in the rest. I'll just show the dockings and show where they went and things, just because, maybe you do want to see all the maneuvers, but I'm sure there's a lot of people who don't, and it would be a very long episode. But I like to leave in, at least some of the maneuvers, because I actually really like doing this sort of station-keeping sort of thing, and it feels kind of fun with a big old carrier. But anyway, just bring him across laterally. I always seem to do this where I put 2 facing one way and 1 twisted around the other way, so they look completely ununiform. But yeah, we're a ragtag bunch of military fighters. That's what you want. No, we're supposed to be not the ragtag bunch. That's the rebels. But yeah, we need to hunt down that. I believe they still have 2 fighters active, and maybe they'll probably be recruiting something else at some point. But they still have the heavy fighter that first took out and then stole Hermes, and I think they still have the blade, which we didn't really have enough armament to take down. So there was very little we could do. But yeah, well, hunting them down will no doubt be a task. A task maybe not for small fighters and large carriers, maybe for something much more powerful. So I have decided to enlist the aid of something much more powerful. Something encased in this giant fairing atop this giant rocket. Those are the 3.5 meter rockets. This is a rather large vehicle. It is smaller than the carrier, but it's, I think, denser and probably more heavy. But yeah, this is Goliath Corporation's most recent capital ship. It's actually not the biggest the biggest of its type I want to make, but yes, we're going to just launch this atop the giant rocket, and rather than building lots of suspense, I'm sure you don't care for suspense. This is, it's not my battle cruiser. This isn't a battle cruiser. This is what I would call a corvette, because it's a light armored, I've forgotten the exact definition, but in Kerbal terms it's the right mass, because if you times its mass by 7, it's about, I think, like 1,000 tons, which is about corvette size if you're talking about sea battles. It has reasonably heavy armament, but that is like limited, so you can't fire it from every direction. Although it's got some missiles that can be fired in multiple directions and things. It's, as I said, reasonably armored, and it could be used very effectively for what is it? Not convoying, like defending bigger ships. But yes, for now, it is my battle cruiser because it is small and rather nice. I actually very much like this, but we'll see it in a little bit. But yeah, I think I'm about to separate the fairings. But yeah, now it's just a matter of drifting into orbit. It was a very large rocket because, as I said, it is quite heavy, and it was too big a rocket, but I'd rather have the rocket work than not work. But anyway, yeah, let's just burn our way into orbit and separate the massive fairing, unveiling our little corvette. It is actually reasonably small compared to some of my other stuff. In addition, it's actually kind of a little bit ugly and square, but it's not meant to be pretty, it's meant to be battle-worthy. We'll take a better look at it in a minute, but I am very, very proud of this. It's, well, hopefully we'll be rather effective at, well, either protecting ships or doing what it's probably going to be enlisted to do now, which is hunt down other ships, because it's small enough to be maneuverable and easy to work with, but big enough and armored enough and has heavy enough armor to destroy anything it decides it wants to. So yeah, anyway, I do need to jettison these fairings on this engine. However, yeah, they get a bit stuck because I didn't really think that through, that one nuclear engine that had the fairing would get a bit stuck. So I quick saved and quick loaded because that gets rid of it. And man, I'm a cheaty save scumming, you know, all that noise. But yeah, that's well, I should probably warp this into the day. Oh no, I actually need to put it into a proper orbit first because I left it in a slightly different orbit from its transfer stage, so I could get it away to have a better look at it. So, yes, anyway, let's ignite the engines. I have to do that manually because I didn't set up any particular action groups, because if I, well, it's probably not going to dock to much because it's not really made for, like, docking. It's a pretty self-contained fighter, but not fighter, vehicle, but of course you can refuel it and things. But anyway, let's put ourselves into a proper orbit with its 4 nuclear engines. It is quite sleek and thin, which I quite like, so it's not so easy just to bombard from far away. So yeah, it's trying to match all the, one second. Had a bit of a cough. Yeah, I tried to cover all bases with this, really. Because you need something versatile for what I want. Because I could put up a giant dreadnought or frigate, or I'm trying to think of all the ship classes. But yeah, I am planning on naming most of these after, well, not naming them, but giving their class based on like a naval ship class that you'd get in the ocean. Because I really like that sort of stuff. Just because I'm enthusiastic about most things. But yeah, let's turn it over and get a better look. You can see next to the pod there are these little missiles. These are the anti-fighter missiles, RCS-based, which, well, I've seen implemented a few times in other people's things, and I think they're very, very useful for something big that needs to be able to pick out a target without flipping around. And you can see the pod's all embedded into its armor, and it's got a little bit of fuel there, and those wings are protective of the engines, and you can see the internals there. And if we flip around the front, its pièce de résistance is these 6 solid rocket motor missiles. These are the new RT-5s, the little ones. I have not come up with a name for these missiles yet, but, well, I am not entirely sure. I'll probably think of it. But yeah, those are those little RT-5 solid rocket boosters. I was gonna use either liquid fuel or the bigger engine, the RT-10s, but which are the kind of standard solid rocket boosters. But the update came out giving me some very useful things. However, I have noticed the only docking ports are actually on the missile bays, so it will be quite hard to refuel this, but I'll figure it out. But yeah, it's all quite well encased in armor, so I can't get too good a look at it, but it is a very heavy little cruiser, and we will be, well, yeah, is it a cruiser? I guess. Cruiser's a loose term, I guess. But yeah, we will be getting a better look at this, and it in action, hopefully in the next episode. But until then, we need to resupply Odin, because it's kind of a sitting duck out there with no fuel. Well, it has a bit of fuel, but not a huge amount. But anyway, let's launch my latest vehicle. I do very much like this vehicle, and I'll explain why. It's because it doesn't use any fairing. This is all very sleek. This whole thing, the whole payload is like made to be aerodynamic, so you can just straight up launch it without a big heavy fairing. The only fairing it does use is to cover its other liquid fuel engine. I was thinking 3rd stage, but because it was kind of like a space launch system style thing, it only really has 2 stages. But yeah, anyway, after that burn almost into orbit, we'll use this stage to burn ourselves into orbit. And you can see the fairings I use to cover up the engines. I very much like that you can have custom engine fairings now. But anyway, let's ignite our engine. This is filled mainly with just liquid fuel because the Odin carrier doesn't need liquid fuel and oxidizer anymore, because in the latest update they've made it so that nuclear engines don't need oxidizer, because nuclear engines wouldn't in real life. They used to when I built the carrier, that's why it carries so much oxidizer. But yeah, so this is just going to drain it of oxidizer and take it a bunch of liquid fuel, really. That's its, well, that's its main goal. I'm going to leave some oxidizer in there because I like to often refuel like other fighters from it, which often need oxidizer. So Odin will have a bit just as a supply, but nowhere near as much as it used to, because it's just unnecessary mass these days. But anyway, it looks like we're going to get ourselves an encounter. But anyway, I'm just going to move all the way in. I left this bit in just to show you how soul-crushing this lag was. Sometimes lag is so soul-crushing, it's just horrible. And this docking was pretty bad. So I'm going to skip through most of this, because you may think you want to see it, but you don't. There was about 20 minutes of this, and the docking took me so freaking long, because these docking ports you have to get quite well lined up, and it was, yeah. These are some of the bits that are a little less fun, but it would have been way more satisfying if I'd had enough frames a second to successfully click. But yeah, I just basically transfer a bunch of liquid fuel in, transfer a bunch of oxidizer out, and then put about 2,000 units of... well, I fill one big tank in there with oxidizer, just so that it has enough to refuel, but the rest is all taken out. But because there's so many little tanks within Odin, because of its fuel flow system, and the RCS, which was horrible, which I'll show you in a minute, it did take me a very long time to do this. It wasn't the most fun thing you can spend your Friday night doing, but, you know. But anyway, skipping just to show you how annoying all my model propellant now is stored in these kind of little tanks. Well, not little tanks, medium-sized tanks, I guess. So it was hard finding all 6 of these, and you can see all the fuel lines in here. This is why it has such a complicated fuel system. But yeah, I do love this carrier, and it works really well. I think there was only this much lag because I've been playing for so freaking long. I spent about two hours just doing a recording stint, basically. And it was fun, but this bit was a bit, you know. But I do like station keeping episodes, actually. It's well, when you've got something this big, the logistics of keeping in orbit are actually pretty ridiculous. But anyway, I'm going to finish this off just by burning this up with the new re-entry effects. However, it's actually surprisingly re-entry proof, because it's actually made of engines, RCS tanks, and well, the bottom's engines, RCS tanks, and a heat-proof fairing base, so it's actually pretty good at, not dying. So yeah, if I put some parachutes on this could be a reusable vehicle. So maybe I'll keep using this. Maybe I'll strip out a few parts and try and make it more efficient. Or just record this after I've not been recording for 2 hours and my CPU's basically already on fire and all that. But anyway, it's about to slam into the ground, and, well, I guess it's time for me to say, I hope you've enjoyed this. This has been KSP with Tape. I will see you next time.